Well, hey everyone, this is Dave Dubeau with another episode of the Property Profits Real Estate Podcast. Today, it is my pleasure to be interviewing a very experienced, astute, serial entrepreneur and real estate investor, Chris Rood, all the way from Florida, but originally from Louisiana. How are you doing today, Chris?
Hey man, I'm doing good. I'm in sunny Pensacola, Florida, by the beach, so I can't complain.
Well, that sounds a lot nicer than freezing cold, chilly, beautiful British Columbia in the middle of January. I tell you that. But that's great. So, if you haven't had the pleasure of meeting or hearing about Chris yet, which you probably will because he's pretty big on the whole social media thing, and he hangs out with people like Grant Cardone and all sorts of good stuff. A little bit about Chris's background. Very interesting fellow. Pretty young guy, Chris, compared to me. You're only 38. He's been married for 20 years, got 5 kids, serial entrepreneur, all sorts of different kinds of real estate investing, an $18 million portfolio with all kinds of stuff, including mobile home parks and apartments. And he's definitely a specialist when it comes to wholesaling, which is what we're probably going to be talking about mostly on today's call. So, Chris, tell us, first of all, how did you get into this whole crazy world of real estate investing in the first place?
Man, somebody gave me Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? Robert Kiyosaki, probably 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And 8 years ago. And well, let me back up. But before I even read that, when I was 22 years old, I arbitrarily, by chance, flipped my first house and made $125,000. That was my first taste. So
nice.
That was by luck of the gods, the real estate gods blessed me. It was a fluke. So what happened after, you remember Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans in 2005?
Yeah.
Well, I live in Lafayette, just east or just west of New Orleans, about 2.5 hours. Well, when Katrina hit New Orleans, it dislocated all these people, right? So they went to Baton Rouge, Lafayette, Houston, Atlanta. And this is 2005. The real estate market's already hot. And that's just like right before the big 07 crash. So it's booming already. And we had a big influx of people come into Lafayette. And I had just built a house probably 4 or 5 years, 2.5, 3 years before that. I built a little spec house and I had paid my land off cash. It was a small, nothing special spec house. But every year, like I saw, like my house kept getting worth more and more and more from appreciation. And then once everybody moved to, like, from New Orleans got displaced, like we didn't have any housing. So it made our houses like almost increase another 20% in a year. It was crazy. So I told my wife, I was like, we gotta flip our house. Like, we gotta sell our house. We can make a lot of money. So I've been watching some of those HGTV shows back then. I was like, got me all excited. So I painted a few rooms, put some landscaping, put a sign in the front yard, and I sold it within 30 days and made 120-some thousand. That was my first taste of real estate. At the time, I had an on-site oil change and mechanic shop that I had started while I was in college. I was making $100,000 a year doing that out of the back of my truck prior to that, and wanted to scale that into shops because I knew I could only scale me driving around meeting somebody so fast. So I took that $128,000 and I invested it into a quick lube car wash and mechanic shop. Not a car. It wasn't a car wash yet. This is just a quick lube and a mechanic shop. At the time, I still had one location already. I'd rented. This helped me scale into 2 locations. And from there, I was like, man, you can make a lot of money in real estate. So I went, and the next house I bought, actually, let me back up. I bought a piece of land on the bayou. If you don't know what a bayou is, it's not a river. It's not a creek. It's like a muddy channel of water that runs through Louisiana. If those are desirable in Louisiana. I flipped that. I made $30,000 real quick. Took that money, used that to actually buy some more equipment for one of my shops. Then I bought a pre-foreclosure, fixed that up, lived in that for 18 months, flipped that, made $60,000, bought another shop. So that was
using real estate to fund your entrepreneurial.
Yes, that's exactly right. I used real estate, flipping houses, to fund my quick lube mechanic shop and auto glass business that I had. And from using real estate, I bought all kind of shops, and I had the biggest oil change and independent mechanic shop in all of Lafayette where I lived. I had 4 locations with 33 employees. I was 25, 26 years old, doing pretty well. I was making, $300,000-$400,000 a year as a young 20-year-old. I was doing well for myself. So kind of forgot about real estate, but that was my first taste of real estate before I actually read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So got really, once I had 4 locations, I was busy with, turning wrenches, changing oil, managing a bunch of people. And I stopped doing real estate and focused on that. So I did that for a couple of years, made a lot of money, took that money. And that's around the same time I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I was like, I'm going to invest in some buy and holds. And took the money I made, bought a bunch of buy and hold. Well, this is like 2011, 2012. I bought like $3 million worth of single family homes, leveraged it out. And the economy was actually, we were booming in Louisiana because we had the oil and gas industry. But a lot of people in the U.S. were still kind of down. But we, see, you guys' 2008 was, and I know I'm going all over the place. I had so much information to go. You guys' 2008 was not our 2008 in Louisiana. We were insulated because we had the barrel of oil was $100 and something during the crash. So Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, all the oil states were still doing good during 2008. So our 2008 was not the same. Like our 2008 in Louisiana and Texas was 2014 when oil went from $128 a barrel to $28 a barrel. Yeah. So in 2014, I almost lost my shirt. I bought $3 million worth of single family homes from 2012, 2014 at 80 cents on the dollar, making a ton of offers on MLS, and was doing good doing that until we had the crash. And literally half of my houses I bought went vacant because most of the people renting them were oil field workers.
Yeah.
Half of them went vacant. My shops that I owned, I had 4 locations, 33 employees, started losing sales every quarter because oil field companies were either going bankrupt, moving out of town, moving to Texas, laying off people. So I literally lost my business. I didn't lose it, but I was losing sales.
Yeah.
And on top of that, the single family homes I had were all vacant. So right around that same time, and that's a long story, I'm eating up all out of your time. Right around the same time, I got into wholesaling. And if you know what wholesaling is, it's the art of finding heavily discounted off-market properties from motivated sellers. Well, if you got a crash, there's going to probably be a lot of motivated off-market properties from motivated sellers, right? So long story short, 50,000 foot view, I got into wholesaling at the same time that the economy crashed. My other businesses were tanking. I was losing money with the rentals and my shops, but I got into wholesaling and I freaking slaughtered it, like made a killing. And I was able to cover all my losses. And that's kind of what happened with me. That's
a very, very cool story. So folks that aren't very familiar with wholesaling, and yes, it does work up here in Canada, you guys, so listen close. Maybe just give us a run through of what does a wholesaling deal look like to you?
So what a wholesaling deal is, basically, like I said, it's a professional marketing business for one. That's all it is. We're marketing for motivated sellers. And when I say motivated sellers, I mean people with problems like they either went through a divorce, they got a job transfer, they're getting behind on their bills, they made a lot of bad decisions, maybe they're on drugs. I mean, you see all kind of throughout the whole gamut of people that need to sell their property fast for cash. Right. So I teach people how to market directly to these people to find, or a tired landlord. Maybe it's a landlord who's been owning properties for 20 years. He's old, he's burnt out. His house is a distress. He doesn't want to deal with it no more. He's willing to take a huge discount on his property to make his headache go away. So I show students how to market to these people, get their houses under contract that say, let's give round numbers. They got a property, full retail is worth $100,000. This landlord is burnt out. The property needs $20,000 worth of work to even get it livable. And you offer him, say, $50,000, and he's been having his property for 20 years. It's paid off free. He's like, Chris, you know what? I'll take your $50,000. Thanks for getting me out of my headache. I get it under contract for $50,000 with an assignable contract. Then I go around and I market that contract to a cash buyer and investor for, say, 65 to 70, or let's just call it 60,000. I assign my rights to the contract from 50 to 60 to him. So he gets it for 60. He gives me a $10,000 assignment fee. He's got a property for 60,000. He puts 20,000 into it. He's into it for 80 and it's worth 100. So he's got a property for 80 cents on the dollar. The investor, the motivated seller wins because he gets out of his property. I win because I make 10,000. And the end buyer, who's the investor, gets a good off market property with some equity.
All right. Well, that's a great explanation. And people that aren't familiar with the business might be thinking, well, why doesn't the seller just list it with a realtor?
Because, hold on one second. I'm sorry. Some people are trying to call me. So a lot of people don't want to list with a realtor because it's speed, right? And time. They don't want, for one, there's so many different reasons. Like for one, a lot of people are embarrassed. Like I buy a lot of houses from people that the houses are really messed up and they're embarrassed. And they don't want anybody to know how messed up the house is on the
They don't
inside.
want to have to stage it or be showing it to potential
Exactly.
investors.
They may have dog urine and they have cats and dogs, and it's just, or they're hoarders, or they're, there's all kind of stuff. Or they don't want, maybe they just got a divorce. I've seen this happen a lot. The wife finds out the husband's cheating, and they all friends with the neighbors, and they don't want the whole neighborhood to know that the house is for sale. So they want a quick sale to where they sell it and they just hurry to move out and nobody knows their business. There's a number of different reasons. So before you say, well, Chris, why would they let you, that's kind of taking advantage of people. Why wouldn't they just list it with a realtor and get full retail? Not everybody cares about the money. I get this all the time. Like realtors bashing me. Well, you're an ambulance chaser. You're this. Like, listen, not everybody's worried about the money. I lost $40,000 in a deal this year because I had a tenant that trashed my house, and I didn't want to deal with it. Yeah, I said, you know what? I sold it to another guy. It was a great deal for him. I lost $40,000 just to get out of it, right? So it tells you that
You became the motivated seller.
I was a motivated seller,
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
Tables are turned.
Yeah.
So it's a number of different reasons. Maybe they're in a time crunch, like they have to sell their property within 2 weeks, and they can't take the risk of putting it on MLS with a realtor and it not selling. Or and a lot of times it's just the house is too distressed, like it needs everything, right? It's so dated that house is totally destroyed or semi-destroyed. It just wouldn't sell well or show good on MLS.
All right. Well, that makes sense. So, Chris, way back in the day when I first got into real estate investing, I was looking for motivated sellers as well. I wasn't doing, well, actually, I did do a few assignments, but doing some other creative strategies. And, back in those days, it was bandit signs, it was vehicle signage, it was tear tab signs in the convenience store, it was I buy houses, tent business cards all over the place. It was ads on Craigslist. It was ads in the newspaper, for crying out loud. All these kind of things. What are you finding works better these days, or what works these days for finding these motivated sellers?
Whatever you actually do and do it well, because it all works.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done it all. I've done direct mail. I've done bandit signs, do Facebook ads. I've done cold calling. It all works. It's just a matter of how deep and how thorough are you going to push into that marketing channel to dig deep enough to get motivated sellers. Now, with that said, are there channels that are more
productive, maybe?
Yeah, productive. I'm looking for the right word. Yeah, that's a great word. Productive than others that I recommend, yes. But here's the thing. Every market is going to react different to different marketing channels. I'm in 6 different markets in 4 states. Facebook ads doesn't work that well in Baton Rouge versus direct mail works better in Lafayette, or, cold calling works better in Panama City, or, PPC works better in Mobile versus, bandit signs. So you have to split test, measure, and adapt and change to your market. There's not one thing. It's not a universal thing like, oh, if bandit signs work in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, that does not mean bandit signs are going to work in Mobile, Alabama.
So basically you need to kind of look at what the whole gamut of different options are and test and see what's going to work best in your market.
Test. I talked about this in my book. Pick up my book, thesourceofthedeal.com. A free copy of ebook is thesourceofthedeal.com. I talk about this. You got to split test, measure, adapt, and change to the different markets that you're in. That's the only way. Now, but if you're just getting started and you have a low budget, what you need to do is you need to start with 1 or 2 marketing channels. I started my whole business with bandit signs. Like, I love bandit signs. Now, you sometimes get in some trouble with bandit signs with the local municipality. Hey,
that's why they're called bandit signs, right?
Right. But it's better to ask for forgiveness than ask for permission, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So if you're on a budget, bandit signs is great. Drive them for dollars, where you go around and look for distressed properties, write down their address, or go door knock them, or put a door hanger, or write them a letter. Listen, you got to hustle in this business. Like, it ain't. If you don't have a lot of money, you're gonna have to spend your hustle muscle, right? You're gonna have to put some elbow grease into it. Now, if you have money and you're doing well, like I am, I spend a lot of money to generate my own leads. Like, I do a lot of direct mail. I do a lot of Facebook ads, PPC, SEO. I do a lot of these different things that work now that I don't have to spend my time. I still do bandit signs, but if I were a young whippersnapper doing it all over again, I mean, dude, you can't beat bandit signs.
Nice.
You got to put a bunch of them out that though. You can't go put 5 and say, man, why it's not working? No, like you need to go put out like 500.
So let me ask you a question, Chris. And forgive my ignorance. I'm not sure of the market size of some of the places that you're in. And I know you've got a lot of students all over the place as well. What's kind of the smallest area that you've seen wholesaling work reasonably well in? Like market size.
The smallest area I wholesale in right now is probably the smallest city would probably be Panama City Beach, Florida. There's only 160,000 people there. But I'm in Pensacola. I wholesale and flip throughout the whole panhandle of Florida. Yeah. But that's the smallest city that I wholesale is Panama. I'm from Lafayette, Louisiana. I do a lot of deals in Lafayette and Baton Rouge. Lafayette's got probably 250,000 people. Baton Rouge is 800,000. So Mobile, Alabama is 600,000-700,000. I'm in Biloxi. Well, you know what? Biloxi, Mississippi, those areas are smaller areas too. But the minimum, I mean, I wouldn't go wholesale in a spot that's got 10,000 people in some rural area. You need at least, to make a dent, you would need at least 80, 100,000 people.
Okay. Yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking. Again, population size, very different in the States versus Canada. That's for sure. We're 1/10 the population of you guys.
Right.
So yeah, that's good to know. Now, another thing, we're just about out of time here, my friend, and I'll extend it here a little bit, but a lot of our viewers and listeners are Canadians, and they're thinking, well, that sounds great. There's Chris down there in Pensacola, but I'm up here in Kingston, Ontario, or Red Deer, Alberta, or Regina, Saskatchewan. Does this stuff work in Canada? Absolutely.
I've got one of my most successful students is out of Canada. A guy named Ben Murison out of Windsor. He made a lot of money in my program the first year. He made just north of 750,000 his first year in my program. Now, granted, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He already had a real estate flipping business. He just didn't understand the wholesaling piece and how to find his own deals. Once he learned that, he just doubled his business. But yeah. I've got Ryan De Laurentiis out of London. He did 350,000.
I know Ryan. Yeah.
Yeah, Ryan's one of my students.
Nice. Yeah.
Ryan did 350,000 his first year in my program. He'll probably do 750,000, 800,000 this year in my program. Awesome. So he's one of my students. I have a guy named Anthony. I forget his last name. He's out of Niagara Falls. He did a couple $100,000.
Anthony Romeo.
What's that?
Is his last name Romeo?
Anthony Romeo. His dad's a big real estate guy too. Owns some apartments.
Interesting. So that's cool. Small world.
Yeah, but it works.
Bottom line, yes, it does work up here in Canada. Chris, if people are interested in finding out more about you, what you're up to, and what you do with wholesaling, what should they do?
They should go to chrisrood.com. That's CHRIS Rood, ROOD.com. Book a call with my sales team. If you're interested in getting into real estate, you start with wholesaling. I wrote a book about this called The Source of the Deal because it makes you the source of the deal. You want to be in first position and finding deals. And when you start a wholesaling business, that's what it does. It gets you unlimited access to heavily discounted off-market properties from motivated sellers. If I could do it all over again, that's where I mess up. Starting a wholesaling business is the foundation. If you ain't got that piece in, if you don't know how to find deals, you're dead in the water as a real estate investor.
Yeah, definitely. Excellent. Chris, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you very much for sharing your experience and some of your wisdom too. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
All right, everybody, take care, and we'll talk to you on the next episode. Bye-bye.
Well, thanks very much for checking out the Property Profits podcast. And if you like what we're doing here, please head on over to iTunes, subscribe, rate us, and leave us a review. Be very, very much appreciated. And if you're looking to create a regular flow of inbound investor inquiries about your real estate deals, then I invite you to attend one of my upcoming live online demonstrations. And you can check that out at investorattractiondemo.com. Take care.